ladies and gentlemen, in our interactions with others, especially in relationships, we often believe that power comes from action, saying more, giving more, proving more. Yet there is an ancient truth that quietly contradicts this. True influence is not always found in movement, but in stillness, not in noise, but in silence. Silence is not emptiness. Silence is presence without pressure. And when used with awareness, silence becomes a mirror. It reflects a person back to themselves, revealing their intentions, insecurities, and desires. When a woman becomes silent, not from anger, not from manipulation, but from centeredness, something begins to shift in the man observing her. Without words, she invites him into a space where he must confront his own thoughts. He begins to wonder, to question, to reflect. Silence compels him to search for answers within himself. Why does he suddenly notice you more? Because your silence removes distraction. Because your silence forces him to feel the absence of your attention. Because your silence teaches him what your presence truly means. Silence is not a weapon. It is a form of self-respect. It is the discipline of not chasing, not convincing, not proving. It says, I exist fully even without your validation. And that, more than anything spoken, is what captures a man's mind. When you are silent, you are not hiding. You are simply refusing to participate in noise that does not align with your value. This clarity draws others toward you, not through force, but through gravity. People obsess not over those who demand attention, but over those whose presence is felt even when they say nothing. Remember, this silence, when rooted in self-awareness, does not distance you from others. It brings the right people closer and reveals those who were never meant to stay. Thank you. Silence is often misunderstood in modern relationships. Many people see it as withdrawal, indifference, or emotional distance. But silence, when practiced from a place of grounded self-awareness, becomes a powerful expression of inner discipline. It shows that you are not controlled by impulse or the need for constant validation. Instead, you choose your words and your energy with intention. This quiet restraint communicates more about your strength than any loud reaction ever could. When you remain silent in moments that would normally provoke a defensive response, you demonstrate mastery over yourself. You are no longer governed by the emotions that rush through you in the heat of conflict. Instead of reacting out of fear, anxiety, or insecurity, you allow the moment to settle, and this simple act shifts the balance. Your silence becomes a sanctuary where clarity can emerge. It protects your dignity and places you firmly in control of your inner world. Strength through silence also means you do not feel compelled to explain yourself or prove your worth. People who are uncertain of their value often feel pressure to fill every space with justification and reassurance. But when you embody quiet confidence, you communicate your self-worth without uttering a single word. This form of strength is subtle, almost invisible, but profoundly felt. It invites others to rise to your level rather than pulling you down into unnecessary emotional chaos. There is also a discipline in choosing silence over confrontation. Not every situation deserves your voice. Not every disagreement is worth your energy. By holding your silence, you send a message: I do not waste my breath on what does not elevate me. This is not avoidance, it is discernment. You are recognizing what deserves a response and what does not, and in doing so, you maintain your emotional balance. Others may expect drama or debate, but your stillness disrupts that expectation and asserts your independence. Moreover, silence creates a powerful contrast. When you are not constantly speaking, your words gain weight. When you finally choose to share them, people listen more attentively, and they consider your perspective more seriously. Your silence amplifies your voice, transforming your communication into something meaningful rather than habitual. You become someone whose presence speaks even before your mouth opens, and whose energy is felt even in moments of stillness. Ultimately, inner strength expressed through silence is not about withholding emotion, but about containing it with maturity. It is the ability to sit with your thoughts, to choose patience over reaction, and to trust that you do not need noise to affirm your place in any dynamic. Silence reveals the power you carry within, a power that grows not from demanding attention, but from commanding respect through your stability and self-possession. When a woman becomes silently centered, she creates a space where her presence speaks louder than any argument or explanation could. This kind of silence is not cold or withdrawn. It is calm, intentional, and self-contained. It shows that she is rooted within herself rather than dependent on someone else's emotional reactions. In this quiet composure, a man begins to sense something different. He can feel that she is not trying to manipulate or chase. She is simply standing firmly in who she is. That steadiness becomes a mirror he cannot ignore. Silence from a woman who is centered forces a man to see himself more clearly. Without her words filling the space, he becomes more aware of his own thoughts, motives, and behaviors. He begins to reflect on what he has said, how he has acted, and what he truly feels. Her silence is not demanding answers, yet it draws answers out of him. It compels him to evaluate his role in the connection, something he might avoid if she were trying to guide the conversation or fix the dynamic. Her stillness becomes the catalyst for his introspection. In many interactions, people rely on the other person's reactions to determine their next step. But a woman who stays centered breaks that pattern. She does not react instantly, nor does she allow herself to be pulled into emotional turbulence. Instead, she holds her ground in quiet awareness. This subtle shift places the man in a position where he must initiate clarity instead of relying on her to interpret or resolve things. Her silence teaches him that he is responsible for understanding his own behavior. As he observes her centered silence, he begins to question what she is thinking and what she is feeling, not because she is being unclear, but because she is being intentional. She is neither pushing him away nor drawing him closer. She is allowing the situation to reveal itself. This uncertainty makes him look inward rather than outward. It pulls him into his own emotional landscape. He becomes more conscious of whether he has been present, respectful, or genuine. Her silence becomes a quiet invitation for him to step into awareness. There is a unique kind of presence in a woman who is emotionally grounded. Even when she says nothing, she communicates boundaries, self-respect, and depth. Her silence is not a void, it is a field of energy that reflects back the truth of the situation. A man cannot hide from this kind of presence. He begins to see not only her strength, but also the gaps in his own behavior. And unlike words which he might dismiss or debate, silence cannot be argued with. It simply reveals. Ultimately, when a woman remains silently centered, she becomes a mirror that shows a man who he is in her absence of reaction. Without the noise of emotional back and forth, he must face the reality of how he shows up. He notices her not because she demands attention, but because her silence gives him the space to encounter himself, his insecurities, his desires, his mistakes, and his intentions. And in that reflection, something shifts within him. When silence enters a space between two people, it changes the rhythm of connection. A man who is used to constant communication, reassurance, or emotional expression suddenly finds himself alone with his own thoughts. Without her voice guiding the interaction, he must confront what he truly feels rather than what he is accustomed to hearing. This creates an internal shift. Her silence becomes the atmosphere in which his real emotions rise to the surface. Unfiltered, unprompted, and unavoidable. In this quiet, he begins to inspect the patterns he normally overlooks. He may notice how much he relied on her attention to feel certain, or how he expected her to soothe the tension he contributed to. Without her stepping in to stabilize the moment, he becomes aware of the imbalance he took for granted. This reflection is not forced upon him. It emerges naturally when the usual noise is removed. Silence is the doorway through which truth enters without pressure or expectation. He also becomes more conscious of his own insecurities. Words from another person can temporarily drown out doubts, but silence makes those doubts echo louder. If he has been inconsistent, silence calls his inconsistency into question. If he has been distant, silence amplifies the distance. If he has taken her presence for granted, silence highlights the emptiness her absence of words creates. In this way, silence exposes what his own mind has been quietly whispering, but he never stopped long enough to hear. Silence activates his imagination. Instead of having immediate explanations or responses from her, he begins to construct his own interpretations. He wonders what she is thinking, why she is quiet, and what her quietness could mean. It is not the silence itself that affects him, but the uncertainty it awakens within him. This uncertainty pushes him to reflect, not on her behavior, but on his own contribution to the situation. Silence makes him realize that answers do not always lie outside himself. They often lie within. In the absence of constant conversation, he also begins to feel the weight of her presence differently. Where he once focused on her words, he now recognizes the impact of her energy, her patience, and her boundaries. Her silence teaches him that connection is not maintained by noise but by awareness. It requires him to step into responsibility, to consider whether he has offered the same energy that he expects from her. This internal questioning grows stronger the longer she remains silently grounded. Ultimately, silence becomes the catalyst that pushes him into a deeper understanding of himself. He cannot distract himself with excuses when she is not speaking. He cannot hide behind explanations when she is not asking for them. He must sit with his own truth. And in doing so, he becomes aware of what he truly wants, what he fears losing, and what he must change. Her silence does not punish him, it reveals him to himself. And so, as we step back and observe these quiet dynamics, we begin to understand something profound. As silence is not the absence of connection, but the transformation of it. It is the moment where truth rises without being summoned, where intentions reveal themselves without interrogation, and where value is recognized without being advertised. Silence is the space where clarity lives. When you choose silence from a place of strength, not to punish, not to manipulate, but simply to honor your own center, you invite the world around you to meet you with the same depth. Some will draw nearer because they recognize your worth. Others will fall away because they were held only by your effort. Either way, silence shows you what is real. Let it be your reminder that you do not need to chase what is meant for you, nor speak endlessly to be understood. Your presence, your calm, and your self-possession speak in ways words never can. And those who see you, truly see you, will hear you even in your silence.